Is there anybody else that you know of that's in the hall that you either had just a brief encounter with, or someone that might be, might have influenced you a little bit?
I don't know, Mario.
Let's talk about Mario.
Mario,
He's your neighbor now.
he's my neighbor. It's funny how we first met. Actually, he reached out to me to compliment me on the C7 Corvette, and that's how we first met. And so it was before I moved, before we became neighbors. And I drove my C7 Corvette back here, and we met at his house, his C7 and mine. Great photos of Mario and myself and our C7 Corvettes together. And
we'll share that with our viewers. That's great.
We kind of blasted up the driveway, the two of them, and we had a good time together. I also gave him a scale model of a C7 Corvette that was our shops had made out of aluminum, polished aluminum, and
nice.
He has an incredible trophy room. This has got a special spot. Yeah.
That's pretty neat. Mario said to me about you when we interviewed him, he said, Ed Welburn is a real racer at heart. You obviously connected, and talk about your passion for motorsports. I know it's been a long-term passion, and maybe take us back to the old Aerotech and some opportunities to encounter others with that.
Racing was around me. Penske's original shop was not far from our house, and Bill Jenkins, drag racing guy, his shop was not far from our house. So, it was around me. And my poor father, before I was old enough to drive, I talk him into taking me to the drag races or to the sports car races.
Which drag strip did you go to? What was it called?
Peacock County Dragway, for the Superstock Nationals, Atco Dragway. Vineland, which was out in the middle of no place in southern New Jersey, had a drag strip and a road course. And that was the first place that I saw Penske drive a Corvette against the Cobras.
Wow.
And that would have been like in, like 64, 65, 65, I think it was. And drag races there in 63, I would have been like 12 years old, but, I've always been interested in racing. Used to go to Mid-Ohio a lot. And when we started the Aerotech project, I decided, right in the midst of it, I decided to take the 3-day driving course, Skip Barber's driving course at Mid-Ohio, just because, I thought that I needed to get on the other side of the pit wall and actually have some time on the track.
Talk about the Aerotech for a moment.
Yeah, and remind me to talk about driving a 917 or a Chaparral.
Yes, we will talk about that.
But the Aerotech project was kind of a major turning point in my career, I think, because I was not just sketching, but I was managing the project from a design perspective. I've always been a fan of the 917 Porsche. And I always had on the corner of my desk, although I was designing Cutlass Supremes, on the corner of my desk were sketches of these real sleek, 917.
Long tail racers.
Yeah, and there's always a sketch or two there. Yeah, I always knew, the bosses would come by at night and sometimes look to see what was there. Well, apparently, when the Aerotech project started, AJ Foyt hated what he had been shown as a design. And the people in Oldsmobile marketing weren't happy either. Len Casello remembered seeing on my desk a sleek aero shape and came racing in and asked me to do a sketch on this project. Very first sketch I did, he took off with it, showed it to him, and he said, well, that's it, that's Aerotech. And I had plenty of other ideas, but the very first sketch I did was the one they wanted to go with. And
do you know where that sketch is? Have you got a copy of that somewhere?
It's in Well, all my sketches are in the Smithsonian, and my whole
Tell
archive.
us about that.
Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
my archives. I think I'm the only car designer in America whose archives
Yeah.
are in the Smithsonian. They're all there. Have copies of everything
Great.
that went there, both electronic and
Hard copy. Mm-hmm.
of everything. It's here in the room. Here am I. So yeah, those sketches were very important. And
Is that first sketch pretty close to it? I mean, really set the theme.
Yeah, the main difference was I painted the sketch. I did it in orange because Foyt was doing all his cars in orange at the time, and I just thought, okay, I'd do it in coyote orange.
Right.
And then quickly, I think under marketing pressure, it moved to silver.
The silver.
Yeah.
AJ's enshrined in the Hall of Fame as well. Talk to us about interacting with AJ.
Well, AJ, as many know, he's kind of volatile person and quite volatile, and he didn't get along with a lot of the GM engineers and, a lot of the criteria they wanted to deal with. For some reason, he and I hit it off. He considered me a good old boy. And we hit it off, and I was almost like a go-between at times, because we did get along, and he's not known for autographs and all of that. Without asking, he sent autograph photos to my kids, and
wow,
and he would always tease me about the shoes I wore, because I'd wear suits and nice shoes,
fashionable shoes, yeah.
Yeah, and he called them my Detroit shoes, and he always kidded me about it. And because it was one of the few things that brought laughter, in the meetings and stuff, I would always wear them because he'd always say, Eddie, you're always wearing them Detroit shoes, and when he finally set the record with Aerotech, Fort Stockton, it was a great experience. It was a great day. Set the record, and he got out of the car and he went to his transporter and came back with these cowboy boots that he gave me. And Tony Lama, ostrich skin cowboy boot. He said, here, and I don't want to see you wearing a damn Detroit shoes. So I love those boots. I still have them. I had no idea who Tony Lama was at the time.
Oh, okay.
Because I was used to wearing my damn
Sure.
shoes.
Did he get your size right?
Yes. Oh, the most comfortable boots. I absolutely love them. The ostrich skin, very soft. Yeah.
Wow, that's a side of AJ Foyt that very few people ever get to see.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And last time I saw him was a couple years ago at Indy in the garage area.
Mm-hmm.
And, we sat and talked a bit for a while. So.
Very good. You've shared a story with me years ago about AJ wanting you to actually take some time behind the wheel of the Aerotech. Can you tell us a little about that?
He did, but I never got to. I did drive it years later. Mm-hmm. At the time, he would. I think he was more joking than anything else. I never wanted to press this relationship I had. No one else was interested in me driving. AJ was, no one else was interested. And when I finally did drive it, I mean, unbelievable. When I finally
Which body were you driving? The long tail or the short?
Long tail. Mm-hmm. And the cockpit, it's an Indy car. It's a March Indy car.
Right.
That skin. And fairly tight, even for me. And it's really tight. And you get so all set up, you get on the track. All of a sudden, all these cars appear. Basically, I was driving in traffic because they did not want me to drive it fast. And they kept telling me, don't drive it fast, keep it under a certain RPM, because they didn't want me to get hurt, I get hurt, and then what are we gonna do, So all these cars appear on the track. And like I'm driving,
police escort.
Yeah, exactly. I might as well have been on 696. I mean, been quicker on 696 than with all these cars strategically in place.
Wow. But it was quick. Well, while we're talking about quick race cars, you have done something that very few people I know have, and that is you've driven a Porsche 917. Cars,
Yeah,
obviously.
I haven't driven a lot of race cars, but I've driven some pretty cool ones. Beyond Aerotech, I drove a 917, the one that's in the Simeon Museum.
Hmm.
The hippie car. The
Yes.
psychedelic stripes on it.
Yeah. The
Boy,
Paisley.
it is tight inside. I mean, if your hand is at 12 o'clock on the steering wheel, your knuckles will scrape the windshield. It is tight. It feels like it's not that much bigger than your helmet.
Wow.
And I didn't drive it at significant speed, but I did drive it. I've driven a couple chaparrals. I know Jim Hall quite well, and I've driven a couple of them, and I've driven them at speed.
That was that at Midland?
In Midland, yes.
Rattlesnake.
The 2E I drove at Rattlesnake. When I drove the 2H, because he wanted me to drive at a speed, we took it to another private track in Midland. Actually, it was a guy who had not a landing strip, multiple runways at his home.
Only in Texas. Only in Texas, right?
Multiple runways, and that's where I drove the 2H, and unbelievable. I know John Surtees hated the car, and maybe in a race environment, it would have been an issue. But for me, it was the absolute easiest car to drive. It's like driving a go-kart. But this had like an 8-liter big block motor in it.
Yeah.
It weighed 1,600 pounds. I mean, it was unbelievable. And you could, with the left pedal, you could adjust the rear wing, when you're cornering or braking, and
wow,
that was great experience.
So you got to live out this Walter Mitty sort of experience of you got to drive some of these, one that you had a hand in designing.
Yes.
And the 917. If you could drive something else, any dream car, any race car, any production car that you've never driven, is there one that comes to mind that you'd love to have a turn at?
Yeah, it would probably be, and I came close, and it would be an F1 car. But one that probably still had, that you wouldn't need a laptop or anything to get stuff. I drove a couple of Paganis, 3 of them, at Suzuka in Japan. There was a special event. I was there, and there were a bunch of Pagani owners. Mr. Pagani was there, and for some reason, all these people just wanted me to drive their personal cars. Which I always feel funny driving someone's personal car, but
sure,
okay, you're at Suzuka,
right?
Pagani, I'm driving it. That was fun, but I'd love to drive an open wheel high end. Formula 5000 would do, or F1.